As someone who's successfully founded multiple businesses, I cannot overstate how important it is to have a single source of truth for your business, for inventory, for revenue, and on and on. There's an amazing tool called NetSuite that can help you do just that. Visit netsuite.com/SPI to download their KPI checklist for free and support this podcast. If you do find yourself buried in manual work or struggling to have a clear picture of your business, you should know 3 numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. Number 25, well, NetSuite turns 25 years old this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. And the number 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. And right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/SPI. There was once a time when building a website was a massive undertaking and a huge pain, something that you would need to clear your entire schedule for. Well, guess what? Those days are over, and now you can build a professional, sparkling website in just seconds, thanks to Hostinger. In fact, I recently did this, and I shared the process on my YouTube channel, and it was absolutely mind-blowing, especially considering it took like days on end previously when I first started building websites. This tool is amazing, and I was using AI to do it. So Hostinger is a top, highly rated global web hosting and website creation brand, right? And all you have to do to build a website is answer 3 questions. Here it is. Enter your brand name, you select the website type, you describe your business, and then you can customize it further with a drag and drop editor. It's literally that simple. I just went through this process. I promise you, it is the easiest way to build a website. And it also offers some AI-driven SEO-friendly copy, an AI logo maker. Plus, they make all this super affordable. It's less than $3 a month, including a free domain name. So create a live website now at hostinger.com/SPI. And listeners of this podcast can enter SPI for 10% off your order and a free domain name. hostinger.com/SPI and use the code SPI for 10% off and a free domain name. It's incredible. Now back to the show. This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 32. Wait for it.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. Let's give it up to the man who once broke his arm trying to impress a girl, Pat Flynn.
Job searches can feel like they're taking forever, a real slog. So stop searching and just match with Indeed. So ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. If you want to hire fast, you need to go where the talent is. You can get unparalleled access to job seekers with over 350 million unique visitors globally, according to Indeed data, and an extended reach through Glassdoor. I love how adaptable Indeed is as well, whether you're hiring one person or you need lots for a scalable project, like hiring platform that lets you schedule and interview hundreds of candidates in one day. Like there's no other one that you would want to use. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Just go to Indeed.com/SmartPassive right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. If you're at a desk a lot like I am, it is really important to move around and increase circulation as much as possible. And a sit/stand desk can be a massive game changer. If you haven't tried one before, this offer from Uplift is for you. Plus, you can support the show at the same time. Visit upliftdesk.com/SPI for 5% off your order. Uplift Desk is the place to go. There are so many customization options, plus free 30-day returns, free shipping, free accessories with every desk. And did I mention the industry-leading 15-year warranty? It's no wonder they've been Wirecutter's pick for 6 years in a row. Plus, they offer a great range of ergonomic chairs and storage systems if you want to give your whole workspace a makeover. They even have an augmented reality feature so you can see what your new desk will look like in your space using your phone. I mean, they even make a height-adjustable conference table that doubles as a regulation-sized ping pong table. These folks have really thought of it all. And if you want to build a workstation of your dreams, I highly recommend checking them out. Just go to upliftdesk.com/SPI for 5% off your order. That's upliftdesk.com/SPI to get 5% off your entire order. It's totally true, and it wasn't pretty, and it was the first grade, so what can I do? Hey, what's up? This is Pat Flynn, and welcome to the 30-second session of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Wherever you are, at home, in your car, at the gym, flying through the air, wherever, thank you for listening in. The podcast just surpassed 1 million downloads. 1 million downloads, which is just incredible. And so I just wanted to take a moment really quick just to thank you for that. All your time and all your support. Over 300 5-star reviews in iTunes, emails every day from people. I love it. I love it. So thank you so much. So 30-second session. I know it's been a while since I've had a guest on here. I've enjoyed doing the kind of solo shows for you, but today I'm excited to bring back a guest who was with us in session number 10. And at that time, he shared that he pushed over $1 million in sales in 2010 from Amazon.com as an affiliate, cashing in about $60,000 in commissions from his sites. And since then, he's actually been heavily involved in a new strategy for building wealth online, which we're going to talk all about today, something that I'm actually really interested in and excited about. And that strategy is buying websites. Not really buying them and then flipping them right away. This is more of a find money generating site, fix it up, and then collect passive income and hold it for a long time type of thing. And these are websites that are already established that people are selling for whatever reason. I mean, it could be a number of things. And we'll get into that. We'll get into how to determine the right price, how to make sure you don't get scammed, what the process is like as far as domain and host transfer, successful buys, not so successful buys. And along the way, you'll hear me. I'm going to try and pick this person's brain because I really want to make sure I understand more about this strategy because, just so you know, I'll actually be buying websites myself and sharing the results of a few of those buys publicly on the blog very, very soon. So look out for that. So without any further delay, let's hang out with Chris Guthrie from MakeMoneyOnTheInternet.com today. Chris, dude, what's up? We're really glad to have you back. How are things treating you?
Great. I'm really excited about 2012. Have a new strategy for how I'm going to be hitting my business goals and just trying to accomplish good things and have a good year.
Yeah, man. We'll talk more about that later. But 2011. I mean, last time we had you on the show, it was session number 10, and we talked about how you just crushed it with Amazon affiliate sales through your niche sites, and you actually pulled in over $1 million in sales in 2010. So I guess the first question is, before we start getting into the main core of this particular session, is now that it's 2012, how did 2011 pan out for you?
Yeah, actually, I ended up selling my top earning Amazon site in a deal worth 6 figures. So that was right before the end of 2010. And it was literally right before the Black Friday week is when the deal closed and I got the bank wire and all that.
Congrats, and I used some. Man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I've kind of been using that money to help fund other aspects of my business. But it was an interesting experience because I used some investment bankers to help sell the site because, we'll talk about this more later, but they have different types of expertise that help them out to be able to get higher end clientele to sell websites at higher level than other types. So in general, last year, I was averaging a few $1,000s per month from Amazon while using more of my money buying websites, investing in other stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're going to talk about today is we're going to be talking about buying websites and probably a little bit about selling them too, because I've noticed lately that this is what you're into now. This is what you're talking about on your blog. And like you said, it's a new strategy that you're kind of exploring for generating income. And this is really, really interesting to me. So I'm going to pick your brain for myself and for everyone else out there listening. So maybe we could figure out how to do this, right? Kind of how Chris Guthrie does it so we can potentially do it as well. So, I mean, of course, you'd have to have a little bit of money to put down before you can, buy a website. But I think the nice thing about it, just first initial thoughts about buying an existing website that's already making money is that you're basically fast forwarding past the whole setup process, the whole getting to the top of Google, the whole monetization and trying to figure that out, you're basically not starting from scratch anymore, but you can just, with a little bit of money down, you can, bam, already have a website up and running, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still do new sites, but I also kind of like the idea of buying an existing site because, as you said, and this is what I'll be advocating, when we kind of get into more specifics, when I'm buying a site, you're buying something that's already making money and getting traffic, and your goal here really is to improve the money and traffic that site's making. So rather than, buying a new site and then dealing with Google indexing it and ranking the content, et cetera, over the period of, a few months or so, and then even longer to get even more trust with Google, et cetera, you're just being able to take advantage of someone doing that work for you ahead of time.
Right. And I was actually talking about this yesterday with someone who I speak with kind of on a weekly basis. It's kind of like my financial mentor. We were talking about buying websites, and it's just fascinating because there is really no other way. If you at least know how to develop websites and take them and monetize them, there's really no better investment strategy when you think about it. I mean, stocks or real estate, I mean, it's basically real estate, but you can get your money back really fast, depending on your strategies and how you work the site. And then, once you've, made up your costs, that site's basically up there, and it's just like having a dividend stock, and you're just collecting dividends every month. That's just an incredibly powerful, very attractive model to me, it seems. So it appears that you kind of feel the same way, which is why kind of you're investing some money now to buy some new websites. And you're not flipping them, right? Are you like buying them and then a week later you add some stuff to it and then turn them around and sell them again? Or are you actually holding on to these?
Yeah, no, I am more interested in buying websites to grow my monthly website income. So I'm just basically trying to add, each time I buy a site, add, a few hundred to a few $1,000s a month, depending on the size of the site, to my website income, so I can just grow that income itself.
Right.
Because I know that some people kind of advocate the flipping of sites, getting them fixed. But a lot of times what actually helps a site sell for more is, longer income history. And so if you buy a site, make these improvements, and in the next month it's made more money, when you go and try and sell it, the buyer is going to be like, well, we see, last month it made more money, but what the previous months it wasn't. And trying to explain to them that, I bought the site, I improved these things, it will make more money in the future, is more of a tough sell than actually being able to point back to the past and say, look, for the past 6 months, the past year or 2 years, this site's been making this much, here's the growth, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of why I do that. And I'm not an accountant, so I'd suggest that you talk to your accountant as well. But there's also some capital gains tax implications if you're going to be selling a site sooner than a 1-year time period.
Okay, interesting. So let me ask you, can you walk through your process from start to finish as far as how you find a website, how you select a website to buy, maybe your criteria, where to go to find it, and then what you do to improve the site and make sure that you're making a wise investment?
Yeah, so I'll kind of talk about this on a few different segments here. So the first thing that I really do is trying to determine if the website's actually any good, right? Most of the sites that are for sale, whether on a marketplace or you're out there just trying to find them and to see if you can try and buy them off someone that's not actively marketing them for sale, they're not that good, right? I mean, some of the sites that you see on Flippa that are selling for $197 buy it now are, weight loss tactics awesome stuff.info. And it's just, terrible websites. So when I'm talking about determining whether a website's good, it's looking at traffic stats from external sources like compete.com or semrush.com. Then I'm looking at the link quality to help understand, how stable the rankings might be. And I'm using a source like blekko.com, it's blekko.com, and Open Site Explorer, now that Yahoo Site Explorer isn't around anymore.
Right. And I'll have all these links in the show notes as well, smartpassiveincome.com/session32. But really quick, you mentioned a couple sites beforehand. Flippa.com, FLIPPA.com. That's a marketplace where people actually put their sites up for sale, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll kind of talk to you about how to find websites to buy as well.
Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't skip over that. Okay, so keep going.
Yeah, and so I mean, when I'm using those sources like Blekko and Open Site Explorer, I'm looking to see how have they built their links to this site, or are they just naturally obtained? And you can kind of tell if they're naturally obtained by just which websites are pointing at them. If it's, if they're obtained artificially through software or article marketing or Web 2.0 profile linking, all that type of stuff, anything that can be done with software, generally speaking, are considered lower quality links. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that you can't actually make money with those sites over a long period of time,
right?
Because you can, and that's what I still do with some of my smaller sites as well. But it's always something to be aware of too when you're looking at a site that gets a majority of its traffic from Google, and you see all of its links coming from, sources that are more easy to obtain them just by using software or whatever. Then you're going to be more potentially exposed to some risk that the site might be de-indexed or lose rankings or traffic and then subsequently income.
Okay, so to check the links and the power of the links and the quality of the links, you said Bleco.com and Open Site Explorer. And just to clarify a little bit, when you go to those sites, what are you looking for? Like page rank of the links pointing to that site, or what criteria there?
Yeah, so I'll look at that. I'll look at the page rank of the sites that are linking, but then I'll also go to where the actual links are located. So if you're on those sites, Bleco is actually one that I use more often than Open Site Explorer, and these are both free sources. So there's actually paid sources that you could do that provide more data. But rather than talking about those, these are free ones that I've used as well.
Cool.
Bleco, you can go and you can see where the links are coming from. So then you can go to that article or wherever that link is and then see if it's, some random blog with a bunch of different content about all these different niches pointing back to this other site, if it's an article marketing type thing. Mm-hmm. Or you can see if it's, some type of a news source and you're mentioning the press or, something like that, using an extreme example to illustrate high quality. But basically I'm looking to see the quality and quantity of the links and just making sure I understand that links coming from sources that are more easy to obtain them are going to be considered lower quality than sources that are more difficult to obtain them in the eyes of Google.
Okay. So we have the traffic stats. Obviously we want to know kind of how much traffic a site's getting and how consistent it has been. We have the link quality coming from the backlinks pointing to that site that we're looking at. So what else?
The other thing too is I'll just look at the content itself. So you can just, if you're looking at a site, say it's on a Flippa marketplace, go to the site and actually read, get deep into the content. Don't just read the content on the homepage. Look at all the other articles on the site and see if it looks like it's written by someone that is knowledgeable about the topic or has correct grammar and knows about it, right? Or if it's you can easily tell it's been outsourced and not outsourced well. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with outsourcing. There's nothing wrong with hiring someone to help out with your content writing. But again, that's just something that kind of helps with determining whether or not this site is going to continue to hold its rankings. And that's really what this whole process is about is, what does the traffic stats look like from third-party sources? And then once you get to a discussion where you're potentially trying to buy the site, you might have access to their Google Analytics data, and you can see, definitively what's going on. But then you're also looking at their link quality and their content quality because you want to say, if I buy this site, is there a chance that Google will do a new update? They have Panda now, and they might call it, who knows, Snow Leopard or something. I don't know.
I don't think they'll use Snow Leopard. Apple already took that one.
That's true. I'm a Windows user still, so.
Koala, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean,
Honey Badger.
There you go. So are they going to come out with some type of new algorithm update that can just totally tank your site? And looking at those, kind of three major factors are things that I do just to kind of make sure that there's a lot better chance. You can't guarantee for sure that a site's going to continue to make its money or get its traffic because that always fluctuates online. So it's all about mitigating the risk.
Okay, great. So we talked about traffic, link quality, and actual content on the site. How about income? Are you looking at? You are looking at how much money that site's currently making, right?
Definitely. I guess in this stage, if I'm just looking for a site to buy, you might not have access to that. If it's on Flippa, then they're going to be sharing that type of data, or they'll say there's no income. But I always look at where the site's making its money from. So it can be whether it's AdSense, Amazon, other types of affiliate networks. Mm-hmm. And the other thing to consider too is, if it's from other affiliate networks, sometimes it's difficult to actually transition that stuff. Like LinkShare, for example, if you were trying to buy a site and it made most of its money from a LinkShare, which is an affiliate network, say from an advertiser in there, you can actually contact Linkshare and ask them to transition the site ID that the previous owner has into your account. So you'd have to go through and manually recreate every single affiliate link that site had. So
you may not necessarily be approved for those either.
Exactly. So you're going to have to go through, make sure you get approval, and then go recreate them all the time. And then if it's Google Affiliate Network, sometimes with Linkshare, if it's just one site on there, they might be able to give you the account. Mm-hmm. But if it's Google Affiliate Network, normally no one is ever going to give you a Google account because it's tied to so many other Google products that they're using, probably like AdSense. And so with the Google Affiliate Network, you have to recreate the links if they're created manually using, linking to a certain type of product on an advertiser's page. Sometimes you can do that through Google Affiliate Network manually. Mm-hmm. So anyways, those are things to think about when you're looking at the income stats, just in terms of dealing with the transition process later. But so I'll look at the income and most importantly, look to see how long the site has been making money. So I have a few different sources where people will contact me to try and sell their site. And generally speaking, I don't get very many sites that are worth buying from those types of sources. But I'll have people that will say, "Hey, I have this site that's making $4,000 per month, and I want to sell it for $20,000." And that sounds on the surface good because that would be 4,000 divided by that'd be 5 months to be able to pay off the cost of that site. But then you look at the income history, and you see in the previous month it was only $1,000, and then the previous month it was $500, and so on. And so obviously you're looking at a picture here that the site hasn't been making money for a long enough time period to really feel confident that it's going to continue to make that money moving forward.
Right. So stability and income.
Yeah. Okay. So it's everything that I'm talking about is all about just making sure you don't buy a site and have it completely tank after you buy it.
Dude, and the research is very important. And we'll get into pricing and all that stuff later, so don't worry if you feel like we're skipping over that part. I mean, I have a lot of questions for Chris, and I hope I can take a lot of his time today to have him answer them all. So again, Chris, I appreciate you being on here because this is definitely something I'm going to be exploring. So, as far as so we have how to check to see if a website's good, if it's not going to tank, and just to kind of reassure ourselves that the investment would possibly be good. How do we find the web? Where exactly can we get these websites?
Yeah, so there's a variety of sources. And so there's Flippa.com, which is one that we mentioned before, and it's the largest marketplace, and I'd say probably the most well-known marketplace for buying and selling websites online. So I like Flippa. Also, website brokers. There are different types of email lists that you can get on for all these different types of brokerage houses that you can hop onto their email list, and then they're selling higher-end properties, typically mid to high 5 figures, well on up, even up into the mid to high 6 figures, and maybe even a 7-figure type site. So those are when you're dealing with people that are, high-end brokers. They have contacts with people at publicly traded companies, and those types of people. So,
what's the kind of average price on Flippa, or does it kind of range?
It ranges. I mean, they've been doing a lot better. From what I've seen when I first started doing this with dealing with higher end websites now. So they have a lot better sources for you to be able to make a listing more confidential and have an NDA that you have to sign if it's like a higher end site, because you don't want your site that you're selling for, trying to sell for $200,000 that anyone can see. And, oh, look, I see this person's making their money from these traffic sources, and I can just go try and copy the same type of site they have.
Right.
So they're getting better with that. And on the lower end too, you can see, most of the time they're under $100,000, and there's routinely sites selling between, less than $10,000 that are decent sites to buy. Okay,
so I mean, I've gone on Flippa.com. For those of you out there listening, it's FLIPPA.com, and I've seen sites on sale for like $200. I mean, is that even worth?
Yeah,
anything?
So it's one of those things where I think that those sellers are trying to take advantage of the fact that people might not know what it takes to make a website that makes money. And so in most of those cases where there's no traffic and it's like tremendous potential, as they might say, lots of potential, that's like a keyword that you want to, I mean, everyone kind of says that any site they sell. I mean, I sold one recently through Flippa. Normally I hold on to them, but I even mentioned that there was potential. I mean, I thought there was, but it's always something that
Potential's
that you're
worth
gonna
nothing.
Yeah, I mean, all you really have is the site making money and how much traffic has it had, and then how long has it been doing both of those things for,
Okay.
And so those are always those are factors you have to think about when you're looking at any website. And oftentimes those really low end buy it now at 197 sites aren't really worth it, in my opinion. It's better to just take the advice you've learned from Pat, myself, anyone else that's talking about making money with websites. Do your own niche research and build out your own site.
Okay.
Another source too, I mean, this is one that I've mentioned on my blog that I use just to refer people to, is getridofyourwebsite.com, and that's my site. So if someone fills out something, then I get an email that says they're looking to sell a site. Like I said before, most of the sites I get through there, people want $20,000 for a website they started last month that gets no traffic and makes no money. But sometimes, I've had people that have decent sites. And then, so that's not really one that can be replicated by people who are listening unless you have, access to people that have websites and they might be interested in selling them. I just do that because, I like to be able to point someone. But
Right.
But the other method, and this is one that I do a lot more of, and I kind of call it the niche research method. And I'll talk about that here. And basically, it's taking a lot of the concepts that you've shared on your blog and I've shared as well about how to start a niche website or even a authority style website, and doing some research about whatever niche you might be interested in. But instead of looking at it from the perspective of you're going to start this niche website or this authority website on this topic, I'm going to find out if people are actually searching for this topic, and then I want to buy a site that's already there so I don't have to start one from scratch.
Okay. Do you buy like the number one ranking site, or do you usually get like one that's in the middle of the first page or not even on the first page?
So what I'll do is I'll look through the first 3 pages to see. I generally won't really even contact people that are on the first result, or sometimes people on the first page, but usually it's just, I have a pretty just scripted message that I send to everyone. And I say, hey, I'm looking to buy a site around this topic rather than start from scratch, mention my name. And actually, I was thinking I should probably use a pen name soon, because I've had people that I've contacted then find my blog and then try and charge me more. So I should probably do that. But I always include my phone number too, because actually all the time I've been doing this, whether it's contacting owners for buying a site or just a domain name, no one's ever called me. But it's good to just put that there because they see you're more serious than someone that's just kind of
emailing
yeah. So anyways, I'll do the niche research, looking at the number of keywords that are searched, using checking the exact box in the Google AdWords keyword tool to see how many people are searching for it. And then I'll go do that search on Google, look at the top ranking sites, and then look for factors like, when has the site last been updated?
Good one.
And that's one of the biggest things I look for. So like, for example, I bought one site for $500 that hadn't been updated in 6 months. And I could see you already had some traffic to the site using compete.com just to check the traffic stats. And I used, at the time, it was Yahoo Site Explorer to check the links. And so I could see you already did some link building. And I think it was just one of those things where sometimes people just lose the motivation for something and they don't take it any further. And then, I bought that site, added some Amazon affiliate links, AdSense, et cetera. And that one's since maybe about $7,000. So,
nice, dude. Nice.
Yeah, and so that one wasn't ranking number one for the primary keyword, but I found it while I was looking at either, starting a site from scratch or just buying an existing one. And so, as I was saying before, buying one is just kind of being able to help leapfrog ahead of all those factors that you have to deal with when you're starting a site from scratch, Google Sandbox, indexing times,
How do you
all that other stuff.
So you said that you can tell how or when was the last time that particular website updated? Was it a blog that had dates on it, or how can you determine that?
Yeah, in that case, it was a blog that had dates on it.
Okay.
You can it seems like for the most part nowadays, every site has some type of a dating mechanism for the content that's being put on there. Now, some people with SEO, they advocate disabling that so that Google can't date your content and then, rank you lower or anything like that. But generally speaking, there's still going to be lots of dates on there. And that's never really stopped me now from contacting someone. I'll just say, hey, I see you have this site. If I notice that it hasn't been updated, then I'll mention that in my email. And then use that kind of as a way to signal, hey, maybe you're not interested in running this anymore. I could take it off your hands, sort of thing. So that's kind of the approach. And, really just to kind of summarize those types of methods for finding sites to buy, I think Flippa is kind of like a shopping mall where everything's for sale. And, if it's on Flippa, then it's for sale and you can come and buy it. Whereas this other method, looking for doing niche research and then trying to find sites that way, you're kind of like a door-to-door salesman.
Right.
And you're knocking on people's doors and not everyone's interested in selling.
Right. Do you, as the door-to-door salesman doing the niche research method, do you get into niches that you may not necessarily, have a passion for, or do you always look for something that you have some sort of interest in?
That's a good question, because I think that's always something you want to think about when you're looking to buy sites. If I buy a site that I'm not interested in the topic, and I know we'll probably talk about some specific examples later, but I'll always try and make sure that there's someone that's going to be taking care of the content already, someone that's already going to be writing, or that I can make sure I can hire someone to help cover it. Because the worst thing you want to do is buy a site that looks like someone's, lost their passion for it, and then become that person because you are interested in the topic.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, now let's talk about pricing. I know this is something on everybody's mind. What is the fair price for a website? I mean, I've heard many things before, like you take your, last year of income and just double that, or, 10 to 15 times the monthly income, or, what's the sort of standard formula there?
Yeah. So it always, it's one of those questions where there isn't like a fixed amount. I'll share kind of some of the factors that kind of give a good range, but it really does vary based on the size of the website, any types of, a unique selling point that the site have, that maybe it's the biggest competitor or, the biggest site in the competition. But it's usually based on the trailing 12 months of the income. So if you have a, series of writers and you're paying your writers $1,000 a month to write the content, and you're getting $2,000 a month from AdSense, well, for starters, I'd say you should continue to use some other monetization methods, but you're really not making, you're really not looking at $2,000 a month in profit. You're looking at $1,000 a month in profit,
right.
And
because there's expenses involved.
Exactly, and I mean, it sounds obvious, but when I get emails from people that are either through the getridofyourwebsite.com site, I see them kind of making that mistake. So they're trying to price something based on revenue numbers and not really on the profit numbers.
Right.
But so that being said, I typically do, when I make offers, between 8 times to 10 times monthly. And because it's, I'm leading out, with an offer, well, first I have to get them to share, at least if I'm doing, niche research method, right, and contacting people that way, then I have to find out roughly what the site's making. But then I usually try and do it based on 8 to 10 times monthly. And that usually ends up getting to the point around 12 times monthly earnings, because in negotiations, I don't know if it's just human nature or whatever, but people want to win. So if you're going to be negotiating and you're the first person to make an offer, I always make it lower, and then it ends up where we both kind of wanted to be at anyways. Right. But and that is just kind of usually what I go for. But really, there are sites that are so unique and so valuable and have, so many other factors, like they were started in, like 1997, and they have been making money on AdSense since 2004, whenever AdSense started. I can't remember what year it was now, but, and those types of sites are going to be looking at, 24 times monthly, or maybe even 36 times monthly earnings, or maybe even more, because there's so much more value to a site that's been making money and has traffic for literally years and years, when compared to a site that, only has those factors for, roughly a year or two.
Right. Okay, so when you're buying, you generally look for, and just to summarize, 8 to 10 times monthly, and then usually through a negotiation process, it'll kind of become just a year's worth of income. And that just seems pretty incredible to me, that at the base amount of income that site is making, you could make it up in a year. And if you improve it, you could, if you improve it by 50%, you can make it up in half the time. Or by 100%, you can make it up in half the time. So it just seems pretty crazy that, I thought it would be a lot more, actually.
And it can be. I mean, that's what I go for when I'm trying to contact people that aren't necessarily selling their sites actively. because it's basically just, here's someone here offering you money. It's kind of like, I watch Pawn Stars, and it's kind of like that. It's like you can right now buy, we can draft up the contract. I'll wire you the money through escrow. You can get this deal done right now, or you can go to the auction and hope it does well that way. Right. So that's kind of the approach that you're doing. I guess I'm drawing a kind of an illusion between the two, but that's really kind of why I think some people go for it. And I think that, and I should say too, again, I have bought sites for more than that. So it's not like a hard and fast, that's what sites always sell for. That's roughly where I try and go, but I've bought sites at 18 times monthly earnings or more. And it really just kind of depends on a lot of those factors that I shared earlier about, how long the site's been making money for, right. Where the traffic's coming from, the link quality. And then additionally too, I'll look at, does it require upkeep? Are there multiple writers, or are you the sole writer? Because those types of things can help determine, how easy it will be for you to take over that site. You might find that you don't want to buy a site where it's just one person writing for it because, and it's about a topic you don't know, because it might be difficult to find someone to fill their shoes. Mm-hmm. That's why a person like a blog that's very personal and focused would be incredibly difficult to sell. Right. Like you would never do this, but it would be nearly impossible for you to sell smartpassiveincome.com because it's so tied to your name. Right. And so that's something to look for as well when you're looking at sites to buy.
Yeah, and also something to think about when you're creating a website too.
Definitely. Definitely.
All right, so okay, let's say I find a site and it looks great. It has great traffic numbers. It's in a niche that's doing awesome. The thing is, there's no monetization strategies on the site yet. Like, would that be something you would go for or be interested in? Is that an opportunity because that person, you can negotiate something a lot better than if that person actually had some numbers to go off of? I mean, would you even, would you just pass on it because you don't really know for sure if that site could make money or not?
Well, I always, I won't really turn down anything. I'll always look at something, right? But if it doesn't have any income, then I'll definitely look to see just how much traffic it's getting. What keywords it's getting the traffic from using Google Analytics, getting that data from the seller. Uh-huh. And what I'll try and do is just, Google AdWords keyword tool. I've mentioned it before, and everyone that's listening probably has heard about it. But, you can look to see the advertiser cost per click for a keyword. So you can look through the various keywords that the site's ranking for, and then run it through the tool to see roughly how much per click a site like that might get. Again, that's just an estimate, but that kind of gives you a rough idea. And then if you also apply it to based on what you see your click-through rate on other sites, if you have your site or your ads rather in the inline content right beneath the article title using an AdSense block or something, your click-through rate at 5% or something, you can kind of begin to look at the traffic and then what the click-through rate might be and then what the average cost per click might be. And then you can kind of come up with an idea for how much it might make money. It's tough because, and generally I don't buy as many sites. Actually, I'm trying to think now. I generally don't at all really buy sites that don't have income coming in, but those are the factors that I think about if I was doing it.
Right. Because I'm just thinking about, if I had my Green Exam Academy site and I hadn't monetized it yet, but it's ranking at the top of the niche, and obviously when I started to monetize it, it did really well. But if I found a site that was like that, there's a lot of potential there, I guess you could say, but it's hard to determine for sure because you're actually, when you're buying a website, you're actually using historical data to make sure that your investment is actually going to be good for you and doing your best as far as research with the links and traffic and existing income that it's going to be well worth your while and it will pay off for you, right?
Exactly. But I think that's a good point. If you can find someone that has those rankings, and if you're listening to this podcast right now and you have a site with top rankings and you aren't monetizing it, then I would suggest that you start. But I think that's definitely worth considering. And in that case, it's almost like you have to just talk to them to see what they think. I mean, I guess I was trying to think of an example of a site that I bought without income, and that the site I shared earlier for $500, it wasn't making any income. He didn't have any ads on it. So yeah, I have done it that way. And I just kind of offered him. Cause like, hey, this is a shot in the dark. $500. I can see you registered the domain name less than a year ago. and he already did a lot of the early work.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew the niche pretty well, I thought, okay, I can make more money with this.
Cool. Well, can you give us like a specific example of a I mean, I know that's one example, but maybe another example that you've been pretty open with on your site as far as what you bought, how that went down, and kind of how much you paid, or if you can share that, or how it's been going as far as taking that site and improving on it.
Yeah. So this is one that I bought, and then I bought it specifically with the idea that it'd be one that I would share. So I have it on the same server that my blog is on. So people can, anyways, if they look through my, rather than getting too technical about it, but people can see, people that are really technical, they can go and see what sites are on your server. So I kind of make it a point to make sure that sites I want to protect are on a different server. Mm-hmm. In any case, and then they're using different AdSense IDs. But that site was copycatcrafts.com. Copycatcrafts.com. So like a crafting type of website. Yes. So okay. It is a blog about do-yourself crafting, and I know nothing about do-yourself crafting. And the site I bought, it was $4,000. And at the time I bought it, it was making roughly $200 a month. So I'm already kind of breaking my rule I shared earlier about the 8 to 10 times monthly. Mm-hmm. Because it's hard to just rely on a formula, because you have to look at so many other things when you're looking at a site to buy. Right. And in this case, that site, it was getting roughly 200,000 page views a month.
Okay, and 200,000 page views a month. It was only making $20 a month.
No, 200.
Or excuse me, 200. How was it making money before?
It was using a banner network that is specifically for do-it-yourself. Yeah. Okay. Rivet Media is the name of the banner network.
And then you paid $4,000 for the site.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And so the biggest thing I saw is that you have a site that had a 300 by 250 pixel, standard size banner ad in the sidebar, and then a 728 by 90 above the content area, kind of right above the site logo. Mm-hmm. And that was the only advertising. But I knew that it was getting 200,000 page views a month, which is an absolute ton of traffic.
Yeah.
So I figured that even just improving the monetization by adding in additional advertising in better locations would more than make up for, would help me make more money, right, because it's just getting so much traffic. Right. And so I bought that site in late June 2011, and at the end of 2011, I'd already paid it off.
Nice,
dude. And so now it averages about $600 per month in profit now, because I've bought the site and it's just running it there.
Nice. Well done. How did you find that site?
So that was an example where it was through an email list that I was on. Someone was saying they were looking at doing Flippa, but they didn't want to deal with the process and trying to go through setting up all these things. So I just kind of quickly asked her, what's the site about? How much traffic is it getting, and how much are you looking to get for it? Uh-huh. And did a little bit of negotiation, and then I just bought it from her. So that one isn't a good example of finding one and buying it and then fixing it up, but it's still kind of the same matter where, and she recognized too, she knew that it could make more money, but she had even said one of the reasons for her selling it is that she had other projects that were making her more money, and that she was more focused on just kind of being in that one specific area. Right. And so that's oftentimes why people are selling, and then you can make more money with the site that they just sold you.
Right. Awesome. How do I get on that email list?
I'll have to share that
later. Okay, so I guess it's not something that you don't really want to be public, and you have to go out and find those types of places online on your own.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like a mastermind email list. It wasn't
okay. So
it wasn't like
it wasn't like a site broker email list that sends out. Okay.
I'm not holding anything back there.
Okay. Great discussion so far about researching a site, finding one, and pricing it. So let's say we find a website, the owner is interested in our offer, we negotiated. How the heck does transfer work? I mean, I know in Flippa it's a little bit more kind of set in stone as far as the process, because you can pay through PayPal, and then they give you the site. I mean, even then, I don't even know how it works. So, I mean, I have so many questions about this, and I know we're only 40 minutes in, so we're good. And you're cool with time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And so how does that work? Okay, we agreed to something. What is the next step?
Yeah, so I mean, generally speaking, when I'm doing sites off Flippa, And because if you actually looked at my Flippa profile, you would see I hadn't bought sites through Flippa because I don't like people to see the sites that I'm buying because I have my blog and people are more likely to. I don't know. I guess I'm probably maybe too paranoid.
It's you can never be too paranoid online.
But I mean, you know the challenges even just with your security guard training site that people see something successful and they automatically go to copy it rather than trying to do something original.
Yeah, and just so you know, in case you're copying the security guard training site, for any of those listening out there, I am talking to my attorney, so. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I'll do a contract that I've had lawyers had written up. And so I'll just modify it to fit whatever the price is. And then if there's different aspects that are being included with the sale, including those in or removing them, et cetera. Okay. And again, actually, I know this is kind of before even the actual transfer process, but I just wanted to mention this too. I kind of steer clear of non-US based website owners just because particularly if you have something in the contract where it requires their ongoing work, like a transition period, unless you don't really trust that person, it will be very difficult and probably cost prohibitive for you to pursue them and, across country lines legally.
Like if they were supposed to still continue doing work for you and they just left.
Exactly. So that's why, I always use a contract, but that's just something to be aware of if you're going to be buying a site from someone in another area.
Okay. Even on Flippa, would you use a contract?
No, I don't,
because they kind of have their own. They kind of have their own kind of terms and conditions, right?
Yeah, they have their own, and I really don't think that I don't think you'd really be able to do that. I don't think, because most of the time with Flippa, it's like the seller is saying, "This is my site. This is what I'll do for you when I sell it." Whereas when I'm trying to find sites to buy that aren't on Flippa, it's like, what other types of things can be negotiated that might not be in a Flippa deal? So it'd be like 3 months transition period, minimum of 20 articles, over those 3 month time periods, et cetera. So anyways, those are the things that would be outlined in a contract. But in any case, once you actually buy a site and you've agreed to the financial terms or bought it and won the auction on Flippa, then I always use escrow.com. I have used PayPal in the past. It's really risky because with PayPal, you can always just say you haven't gotten something, and then PayPal can either side with the seller or the buyer, and it's kind of tough to prove one or the other. Whereas with escrow, it's, you agree to the terms. I like the website and the content, and then at the inspection period, you send the money to escrow. Escrow then says they have the money from the seller, and then from the buyer rather, and then as the seller, sorry,
it's all good. I know it's confusing, but escrow is basically like a third party that holds the money, so that the person buying the site can say, "Yes, I agree, this site's good." Then they'll issue that money to the seller.
Yeah, and so the point being is that they have the money while that transitionary period is going on. And then, you confirm, once everything's been transitioned and the site's up on your server and it's running all right, that you have the website and everything's good. And then they release the money to the seller. So,
instead of just directly paying the seller and then wondering if they're ever going to send you an email back.
Exactly. And so that's why, it's kind of an industry standard. Everyone just uses escrow. I bought a domain name from someone for $300 and he wanted to use escrow instead of PayPal. So, and it was like $25 in fees for both of us or something like that. So
you can never be too safe though.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really the most common way to do it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. So then say payment went through, we went through escrow, everything's good. How does the actual transfer of the website work? What parts are involved? I mean, so there's the domain part of it, transferring the domain to, my domain carrier or whatever. And what about hosting? I mean, it just seems like there's a little bit of technical stuff that has to happen.
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and when you're dealing with a site transfer. And so the first thing is that I always do is a domain transfer. And typically you're going to be just transferring from one registrar to the other. So rather than, if you have a domain at GoDaddy and the other person has it at Moniker, you're going to set up an account at GoDaddy if you don't already have one, so they can just do a domain push. Because that's the quickest way to actually transfer between registrars. Whereas if you go across registrar, then it can take 3 to 5 business days or whatever. Takes longer basically than just an account push between the two.
Right.
And then during that transfer, you want to make sure that they leave the DNS information to point to their server, because you want it to be, still from their server and not being transferred, because you want to wait until you have time to bring the content up on your server before you're going to change the DNS information back to your hosting account.
Okay,
And-
so basically you have a domain. I mean, they have a domain and a hosting account, right?
Yes.
So, and then you transfer the domain to your name, but it's still on their hosting account, right?
Exactly.
And then you create a hosting account with the same domain, using that domain name, but until you change the DNS information, it's still going to be on their hosting site, right?
Exactly.
So you want to make sure you pretty much have an exact copy of their site set up before you change over. Is that right?
Exactly. And what I'll generally do too is if it's just making money from AdSense or whatever, I'll change it while it's still on their server.
Change their like your AdSense ID.
Yeah, and then I'll put in like my analytics as well, and so that way once I've transferred it, then it's done. And then the actual transfer process, because it can be kind of technical, you can either do it yourself, or you can always have your hosting company help you out with that. So
That's what I would do.
yeah, so whichever one it is, there's always some type of transfer fee that they can charge you, and it's probably under $20. Normally it's like $10 or something for a WordPress site, so it's not very expensive. And then they'll transfer both the public HTML folder, which is just all the files of the site, and then as well as the database for the if it's WordPress, again, just the blog database.
Gotcha.
And so and then once you've transferred that, again, your hosting company can generally point you to something that shows that the site is on your server and actually still running. Before you actually change the DNS information over. So you can make sure that the backup went all right, et cetera. And then, then once you finally have it all that done and it's over on your server, and again, this can be done pretty quickly, then you would then change the DNS information over to your server so that it's pointing at your hosting. And then you just go to a website like what'smydns.net and then put in your domain name, and it will tell you the IP address of the website. And then that will help you determine whether or not the site's been the DNS is propagated, so it's showing the correct server and not the old one.
Okay, so then at that point, if he were to do anything on his site, that's not the site that would be online. It would be yours.
Exactly. And then usually that takes 24 to 48 hours. So I just usually tell the seller that, hey, I'm transferring this site right now. Just don't make any changes, because they're not going to do anything.
Right.
And
when during the payment process, or like, is this happening? Is it during during the transition period in escrow, or?
Yes. So this is still the transition period, because technically you haven't received goods until it's on your server. I mean, depending on your contract, you might have something that said you just need a site backup, but I always just say until the site is over onto my server.
Perfect.
Because that gives you the time to transitions.
Perfect. Okay, so say we did all that, we got the site, escrow is good. That's when you would release escrows, when you have the site and everything looks good on your host, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so and then if you have AdSense on your site, or you said you would change the AdSense during that transition period.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to. You could just wait. You could just quickly get the domain transferred, get them to send you the backup, use your server company. Again, all these technical things you can just pretty much just hand off to your server company. It might cost you a little bit of money, but in my opinion, it's always worth it if you value your time highly enough.
Right.
And then so wherever that stage might be, then you're going to have to change the advertising or whatever it is that they're using to make money. And so if it was AdSense, I always just keep everything the same for a little while. So I just recreate the exact same ad units, same colors, same sizes, and then just go through and remove their ads and put in mine.
Got it. Nice.
And again, if it's WordPress or any other type of site that uses a content management system, they're probably using it in just one location, and then it puts the ads everywhere else at once. Okay.
And that's a good lead into my next question is, not every site is on WordPress, right? And WordPress is the only thing I know how to use pretty much. What happens if a site that I look at is just perfect and I want to buy it, but it's not on WordPress? I mean, I know everyone, most of my listeners are on WordPress, but are clueless, like I am, about how to manage another site. I mean, can we change it over to WordPress? Would that affect the rankings at all? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I always just keep the sites using the same structure. So if it were just a static HTML site, that'd be a really simple transfer, even easier than a WordPress site. But I bought a site recently that was using Windows hosting, and I've never once in the 7 years or so I've had websites been using a Windows-based hosting system. So I had to go and get a separate shared hosting account for Windows to get that site. So that's always something to be aware of. And I don't know if it necessarily means you should kill the deal, but converting a site that's using, ASPX or whatever it's called. I'm not very, no idea. As I'm saying this stuff, people might be thinking I'm technical, but I'm really not that technical. I've just kind of learned enough to get by. But if it's, if you're using this type of a different file structure, then it could be a huge pain to actually transition it over to WordPress. And that can in turn actually hurt the rankings. It might help them over time, but in the short term, it might hurt them. So I usually just keep everything the same and just kind of make changes slowly.
Because I would love to buy a site, and if it wasn't in WordPress, I would love to switch it to WordPress. But I've heard a lot of people say that the rankings go down. But you're saying that they probably, they might, but over time, it'll get back to where it was.
Yeah, you will most likely lose them at first. You might not, but then over time you might regain them and they might come back stronger. But it's one of those things where because it's Google and it's ranking and there's so many different factors. Yeah, I usually just keep things the same because I'd rather not risk it.
You don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, and so I usually don't buy a site and then instantly, or I'd never just buy a site, take it over, instantly change everything about the site so that no one could even tell it was the same site afterwards.
Yeah. And, if I were in that position, I'd probably wait a little bit, just at least add some AdSense or change existing things around and just tweak a little bit. And then over time, slowly introduce new elements and maybe eventually switch it over to WordPress. But it wouldn't be good to do that right away, you're saying?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it right away.
Okay, cool. So coming up to the end here, a couple more questions. Now, through all your experience with buying and selling websites, have they all been good? Have you run into any hiccups or mistakes that you'd like to share, and what did you kind of learn from them?
Yeah, no, I'd love to say that every site I bought was the best ever investment decision. But it's truth be told, buying websites is risky. It's risky. As with any investment strategy, there's inherent risk, and especially with websites. All the things I've shared they're designed to help reduce that risk so that, you buy a site and it's good. And because sites don't sell for a huge amount of earnings, if you compared it to like real estate, for example, you can do pretty well. But when you're looking at sites and you're thinking that, maybe the content looks a little low quality and it has kind of some really bad links, even though it's making good money, it's just really risky because I bought a site once where my gut was telling me this isn't a very good site. It might not be a good deal, but I negotiated like a lower price by $2,000 less than what I was originally going to pay at the last minute to say, look, I just don't feel comfortable, and he agreed to it. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll go through with it. And the site had been making money with AdSense since 2007, so there wasn't anything that was so there wasn't anything that was setting off radar or whatever that was saying that this is going to be a bad site. But literally 9 days after I bought the site, and it was making me about $30 a day from AdSense just sitting there, no work for me to do. AdSense banned the URL.
Oh no! Are you kidding me?
Yeah, so
that sucks.
And at that rate for the AdSense earnings, it would have been paid back in 6 months or so.
Right. So $30 days, $900 a month. That's probably a pretty hefty investment you lost there.
Yeah. So it sucks, but then I also have even just that little site that I bought for $500, it's made me $7,000. That made more than the site entirely cost me. So, it's not enough to stop me from continuing to buy sites, but it was one of those things where it had pretty thin content. And I think one of the things too is it was using the old strategy where people would put a Google AdSense link unit above, and then instead of saying like advertisement or just leaving it blank, it would say other resources.
Oh yeah, that's a killer right there. You can't point to those links or suggest people to click on them at all.
Yeah, and so I was looking through to see where, compliance-wise it could be a problem. And even recently Google has since said, sites that are too top-heavy with ads above the fold can have their rankings reduced. So this site definitely would have fallen in that category. It was a risk, but the side of me that was greedy saw this site that was making good money.
Yeah.
Very simple to no work at all, and they've been making money since 2007. So that was roughly 4 years or so of AdSense earnings at the time. And so I figured I'm just going to go for it, and it didn't work out. But
kind of a coincidence that right after you purchased it, 9 days later, it kind of got banned. I wonder.
Yeah, and I thought maybe this buyer had been warned by Google and beforehand, but I don't know. It's again one of those things where do I really want to deal with lawyers for a few $1,000 or whatever?
Right. Now, can you get your AdSense? Not your entire AdSense account got banned, right? Just
the URL. And sometimes with AdSense bans, they'll ban the entire account. But there's a process for getting AdSense reapproved. And I've since changed the site down to just like one advertisement in a good spot, but before I was using about the max. Mm-hmm. And I've contacted them using their I can't remember the name of the link now, but it's a link where you can try and appeal their decision. Okay. I kind of think that it's one of those inboxes that just goes nowhere because Google makes so much money that kind of like when they're banning all the AdWords advertisers, they don't really care that much.
Yeah, that sucks though.
But yes, it is risky, and there are it's important to trust your gut, and it's important to make sure that you make sure the content is really high quality and that the links are good and that everything about the site, checks out, because if you don't, then you can buy one and have it kind of tank on you. I think for that site, and specifically, it was kind of just a fluke and an unfortunate situation, but that can't happen. So you got to make sure you do the research really well.
Right. Well, we appreciate you going through that experience and losing money to benefit the rest of us listening here. Thank you. Sorry to hear that. Honestly. And lastly, kind of what are maybe 2 or 3 important tips that you want to give those who might be interested in buying websites?
Yeah, I really just think that this business model is kind of like buying real estate. Your goal really is to find the houses or websites in this case that other buyers have overlooked, and they don't see that there's a lot of potential that you do. Mm-hmm. Going back to that earlier example, copycatcrafts.com, I could see that there was plenty of room for additional monetization without even really hurting the user experience that much. And so I did that, made more money, and I have a writer that writes the site. I pay her really well, and then I just get to move on to the next project.
Very nice.
So it is a good business model. There are a lot of risks to it, but and the other thing I should mention too is that it's not for everyone because it does take some capital to get started. So I wouldn't suggest that you buy a site for cash out your bank account and buy a site for $5,000 using your savings that you're saving up to use for a car payment or something.
Right. Yeah, that's never good.
Yeah, but you really can kind of get involved in any price range. one of the very first sites that I bought using that niche research method was only $500. And I just looked for a site that, I was initially looking for just doing some niche research to determine whether or not I wanted to build a site. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, here's a site that has a domain name that I want and some of the content already done. So I'm just going to contact him. And that kind of set me down the path of doing this more frequently and having pretty good success with it. So,
awesome.
There are good opportunities to be made, and just make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew.
Great. And one quick question, kind of to flip it around on you on the other side. If you were selling a site, maybe what are maybe some 1 or 2 tips that you might be to give people who are interested in selling their sites? Because obviously it takes 2 to tango here. You need someone to sell the site in order to buy it. So as a seller, because I know there's some sellers out there, and you've sold sites yourself as well, maybe what's 1 or 2 things that you'd like to say to those people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, and I can kind of, again, position it from the buyer standpoint, is that your buyers are going to be looking at the site thinking, what can I do to make more money with it? And if it's a blog or some type of a thing where you have some expertise about how you set up the site, then they might want to know all the things that you tried or didn't try to make more money with it. Because, if I see you didn't try using an email newsletter or you didn't try using AdSense, then those are opportunities for a seller, or for a buyer rather, to take part in when they're trying to take over your site.
Right.
So again, as I said earlier, the whole lots of potential being something that people always include, definitely including things in your listing that talk about what could be done to improve the site and what you would do, if you continue to run it, are helpful, at least from the standpoint of helping a buyer determine whether or not this is something they want to pursue. But so I'll look for that. And then another thing too is don't try selling a site that doesn't have a very long income history or traffic, because you're not going to get enough money for it. Hold on to the site and get it to be stable on those things before you try selling it, because otherwise you're not going to make nearly as much money as you can if you wait until it's stable.
Right. Great advice, Chris. Anything else to add?
That's pretty much it. I mean, I think
we covered a lot. And you're actually coming out with some type of course to kind of go into more detail about this. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's Virtual Moguls, and we set it up initially to do live webinars in addition to the course, but we found that just not as many people got onto those as we anticipated. So we're transitioning it more into a series of videos and lessons that go into a lot more detail and a lot more case studies. Right. I shared the site that I bought that totally tanked in there, and the site that I bought for $500. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of talk about how I'm making more money with websites. And actually, I partnered with some brokers that I met. I met a broker when I was flown out as a consultant for a buyer on a 7-figure site. Mm-hmm. So I met a broker that was selling this site for 7 figures and shared a little bit of what I was doing. And he has years of experience. Him and his team have years of experience selling sites. So I partnered with them to kind of help create something based on both of our expertises. Me knowing buying websites pretty well, and them knowing selling websites really well. So
cool. Well, yeah. I don't want to pitch the product here, but I mean it's available, and I'll have more information on it on the show notes at smartpassiveincome.com/session32, and I'll see if I can maybe grab a good deal out of Chris for all the SPI fans out there. I mean that's great. I mean this is definitely we've covered a lot in this hour, and there's obviously a lot more to it. And I think with something that requires a little bit of investment and capital, like buying websites, you do definitely want to get the most information possible. And Chris's blog at makemoneyontheinternet.com is a great resource. He shares a lot more information about buying and selling websites too. So head on over there first. And Chris, anywhere else people can go to hang out with you for a little bit online?
Yeah, I mean, you can just follow me on Twitter at Chris Guthrie. And then additionally, too, I have an email, chris@makemoneyontheinternet.com. I try and answer every email that comes in to the best of my ability.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments and questions here on the podcast, on the blog. So, just like you did last time, you're always good about coming back and responding to questions. So I don't even have to ask. So thank you so much. And to everyone out there, thank you for listening in. And after I close up with Chris, I just have a couple more announcements. So again, Chris, thank you so much. Always appreciate you on the show. You were on 22 episodes ago. So hopefully, we'll have you back on maybe 22 episodes later.
Sounds great. I'd love to.
Maybe sooner. All right, man. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, bye. All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris Guthrie from MakeMoneyOnTheInternet.com. Always a fantastic guest. Always shares a ton of information, and he definitely delivered in that session there. Now, I realized that was about an hour-long session, but when you're talking about something like buying websites, you really want to get the most information possible. Now, if you do want even more information, like Chris was saying there at the end, he does have a course you can check out, and I was actually able to negotiate a little bit of a deal with him just for Smart Passive Income listeners and readers. So if you wanted to check that out, I'm not forcing you to. I'm just saying if you want more information, you can go to smartpassiveincome.com/mogul. That's smartpassiveincome.com/MOGUL, and that'll redirect you to the sales page with a little bit more information and the discount just for you. And again, that is an affiliate link, so if you do go through that link, I do get a commission, and I'm just letting you know up front, so thank you for that. And if you have any questions, feel free to go to the blog and leave any comments or questions there. You can actually go to smartpassiveincome.com/session32 to go directly there and leave a comment or question, and Chris and or I will be there to answer as best as we can. And just to finish this off, thank you so much for your support. As always, the next couple sessions are going to be special. They're going to be kind of reflecting on what we did in session 25 or 24 and 25, I think, where we had people come on and share their online business success stories. And these are people who don't teach about making money online, or don't have a blog about internet marketing, or don't teach about blogging. These are real people with real businesses who are changing the world and making their lives better. So if you have a success story you'd like to share, send an email to pat@smartpassiveincome.com. If you have an online business that doesn't talk about online business or money making or anything like that, or blogging, I'd love to hear your story, and I'm sure everyone else would too. I have about 40 other people waiting in line to share their stories. So, I'm just giving you an opportunity to get on the waiting list there. And, if there's room for a podcast session in the future, I'd love to contact you, but I'm just letting you know. So pat@smartpassiveincome.com. And again, if you want Chris's course, smartpassiveincome.com/mogul, MOGUL. Thank you so much. Good luck with everything. Take care, and look out for the upcoming posts about my experiences with my first experiences buying websites. And I guess we'll see how that goes. So take care. Thanks, and all the best.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
Hey there, and thanks for sticking around to the end. If you're looking for more great shows like this one, definitely give How Success Happens a listen. Another great show from the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. On How Success Happens, Robert Tuchman features some of today's brightest entrepreneurial minds talking about overcoming challenges and viewing them as learning experiences to create success. The challenges that entrepreneurs face are ultimately what make many of us successful, however we define success, and that's what the show is all about. There's lots of names you'll surely recognize on the show every single week. Just recently, Robert had Nasty Gal's CEO Sophia Amoruso on the show, and the former CEO of Snapple the week before that, which is really awesome. So listen to How Success Happens right now on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or Stitcher.